Tom Lee has started a new ETF fund with about 35 stocks. We're going to go into those. We're going to look at his new GRNY GRNY ETF, all of the stocks in there, the criteria. We're also going to look at Tom Lee and what he thinks the next potential 4 years is going to hold. I am really excited to go over this. So guys, hit the like and subscribe button below. Now, I really respect Tom Lee. He has been a supporter of my research in the past. So I thought I would do this. I am not paid to talk about this ETF or the stock, and you guys got to do your own due diligence. But it is something that I think a lot of people probably want to see, especially some of the picks. There's 35 stocks, and we're going to go over those. This is what Tom Lee had to say about this.
What differentiates a granny shot in basketball is that it may not be the best looking way to take a shot, but it has the highest probability of actually making a successful free throw. Rick Barry's percentage was over 93%.
We started this granny shot portfolio strategy back in 2019, and over the past 5 years, we have been asked by many clients how they could deploy their capital into this strategy. That's the primary reason we launched this ETF.
The granny shots approach is looking at the most important themes that are driving markets. Today, it's things like AI or cybersecurity. And then we look for the strongest stocks within those themes. But we don't just take the strongest stocks in each of those themes. We want to find stocks that are leveraged or linked to multiple themes. And that's why it's called a granny shots. We think it has a higher probability of being an important name that institutions will own over the years because it appears in multiple themes.
In a marketplace that is filled with an overabundance of opinions, what I really appreciate about Fundstrat is that their views and their research are grounded in a deliberate analytical process. We think it's imperative that members of the Fundstrat community and beyond who decide to go on this journey with us with the GRNY ETF understand that they'll be fully supported by our team.
I think what's really separates Fundstrat is that we want to teach you to look at markets really from an evidence-based lens, but also to separate the signal from the noise, and that means also not following the crowd. I think too many people make emotional investment decisions, and we want investors to make decisions that compound their capital.
Now, the first thing, before we jump into this, why is it called a granny shot? Well, the granny shot refers to an unconventional basketball free throw style. For the fund, it represents Fundstrat Capital's unique research policy, and we're going to go over those. They are able to share this out there, and the process is very interesting. It's not like traditional ETFs a lot of times. There's a lot of interesting data we'll go look over. Shaquille O'Neal, everyone knows, wasn't that good of a free throw shooter, but Rick Barry, the unconventional underhand throw, the granny shot, he was 90%. So hopefully this kind of like explains what this actually means. Now, before we jump into the actual stocks, we need to know why Tom Lee picked today. Why did he pick when this new administration is coming in? At this point, it obviously means he is bullish. He's been very bullish. He thinks that there is opportunities regardless of what administration's in, but I really want to hear what he has to say here.
What do you make now? You've had a chance to digest a little bit of what's happened. Yesterday was, felt euphoric. Now what?
The move yesterday, 3%, the best move in the history of any post-election rally, I think needs to be respected because it really highlights one of two things, or both. One is that there was so much de-risking into that election. Actually, it was unusual. We actually fell 2 weeks into election day. That happens like about a third of the time. And the second is that animal spirits could be unleashed because of the interest and belief that there's deregulation and mergers and a pro-business environment. So I think it's a very respectable move, and I think it sort of argues we have 5 to 10% upside into year end.
So one of the things I also, have been looking at is this new administration's very pro-energy, especially in the US, refining oil, nuclear energy. There's a lot of money coming into that. Both administrations have been doing that, but there's going to be a lot less deregulation. And that's a big play because a lot of stocks out there have been hit over the past few years because of deregulation, especially in the energy sector, potentially finance, with high rates. Some fintech stocks have, like PayPal are down at 2017 valuations. And this is something that a lot of people didn't expect, like Tom Lee, that there would already be a new president elected. Like, we thought this was going to be going potentially for weeks. It has in the past, in the year 2000. So we were cautious about that as well. And so was Tom Lee. And a lot of people de-risked. A lot of people took money out, took potential gains or even losses, depending what it is. Because the new administration that could have came in could have really change things up in the market, especially with capital gains tax in the future being unrealized capital gains tax. So it really did shake things up.
At what point, though, do you get on board with Barry Bannister's idea that the train could be leaving the station heading, full speed to Crazy Town?
Well, he's sort of structurally correct that, this market top is not going to be because of someone's going to have a problem with PE or because a recession's going to happen. I think it's very likely, in the next 6 months, the top is because either firepower is exhausted or expectations have become unhinged on markets. We can measure either, right? We can look at margin debt. That's just been flat for the last 4 months. So the market's been up and most investors have been de-risking. That's fuel for me, upside fuel. And when you look at sentiment readings, it's not extreme. In fact, the VIX was elevated and only normalized yesterday. So I don't think sentiment's extreme.
When shorting this market, they've been, decimated.
Gosh, I was just going to ask you about the VIX. It's funny you went there. I'm staring right at it. I mean, it's down 30% on the week at just a full-blown collapse, right? Don't forget, we were above 20. I think we were at 22 at one point last week. We're barely above 15.
Yeah, it was actually very interesting to look at the VIX futures curve. But on election day, the VIX futures curve was over 20 all the way through August of next year. It should be around 15, 16. The markets were pricing in tumult and uncertainty for like 9 months, 10 months. So I think there's a huge amount of re-risking taking place. I don't think people got their exposure yesterday and today.
I mean, look, you I know, thought that we wouldn't know the outcome of the election for many weeks. I think that was your base case coming in. So I think there's a lot of surprise, rethink, as we look at where this market might be able to go. On that note, you do have a new ETF, which I want to talk about. It's called the Fundstrat Granny Shots U.S. Large Cap ETF. Granny Shots being that you think these would be a little bit easier to make, right?
Yes, that's right.
How'd you build it? We're talking about names. I hope we show this. I think we have produced this up. Tesla, Goldman, JPM, Johnson Controls, Caterpillar, Emerson, TransDigm, Eaton, Oracle, Ingersoll. That's the top 10. But how'd you build that?
The Granny Shots ETF is really built upon the research model we used at Fundstrat. That was a thematic core stock portfolio that we had been using since 2019, so for 6 consecutive years. It takes 7 what we consider relevant market themes, and it finds the most correlated stocks to those themes, whether it's AI or millennials or Fed easing or improving PMIs, and then the stocks that appear in the most frequently across themes are our Granny Shots. And Granny Shots is named after Hall of Famer Rick Barry's way of shooting free throws.
Some of us do remember that. We definitely do. Tesla's the #1 stock. The weighting is 3.25%. You want to just talk about the move in that stock this week and what it means to you in context of how you've built this and where you think it can go?
Yes, Tesla has, in our research product, had been appearing since inception, since 2019, because that company has a hidden asset, which is its AI and intellectual property. And now, of course, the intellectual property built around all this infrastructure they own. So it's a company that, to us, looks undervalued because people look at it as a car maker and look at current margins and earnings. But as we know, there's a lot of new initiatives, whether it's robotaxi and robots, and now, of course, there is a political angle that you guys well discussed, and I think it can only help Tesla.
So out of the 35 stocks, Tom Lee has not picked PayPal yet. Now, PayPal is still at 2017 valuations. It is, in my opinion, meeting some of the criteria that they are going to have that we're going to go over, but it's not necessarily in the Granny Shot criteria yet. But it is undervalued, and Tom Lee has supported my thesis on PayPal. He was impressed with the long-term thesis, but it's not in there. Now, what is actually in there? The #1 stock has been Meta. And this maybe is something that a lot of people are like, what? Can Meta continue to grow into this? Meta really is, that's the #1 stock in this portfolio. Everything, all the big stocks, the top ones are about 3% of the portfolio, but this meets all of the criteria. Now, the Meta thesis, long-term Meta can grow because of AI. We have not seen them really tap into that 100% yet. So there is growth there, and a lot of people like that aspect of Mark Zuckerberg. that he has been on the forefront of this. And, you know, AI could really help his dreams of the metaverse and things because of the computing power that these new AI, you know, GPUs that NVIDIA is making can do for the future. And they've already been locking up a bunch. So we'll go through the criteria. These are for the shorter term, 6 to 12 months. Now they, at any point, as they said, could actually sell a stock, you know, so this is obviously not investment advice. And GRNY, the ticker, you can actually buy it at Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Interactive Brokers, and E-Trade. The thing is, this style tilt, so this is going to be when your portfolio has exposures to various factors that may allow investors to achieve a higher expected return. And this is, you know, in the short term. So we're talking about, you know, rate cuts. It does also involve, in a sense, seasonality, cyclical sectors. These are kind of in the same area. Now, 21 of his stocks, he believes, are actually in this style tilt. 31 stocks are in the theme. Now, seasonality is the next one. So we've talked about this in a lot of our sectors before, uranium and nuclear energy, cyclical sectors as well. So the way they actually explain it to their investors is that this is a certain industry or groups of stocks that may exhibit reoccurring patterns of performance during specific time periods. So, you know, uranium, when there's need for uranium and contracting from utilities and there's no production in the US going on, then the utilities come in, they need uranium. Uranium prices go up. Uranium companies start to get into production because they can raise money. And then you got this boom bust cycle. Nuclear energy as well. These AI companies need that. Now there's 4 in this: Google, Garmin, GRMN, GWW, and Caterpillar. So if we pull these up over here. So Garmin's actually looking really good since 2022. And the other one that we had was Google. A lot of the plays in AI, they've had this cyclical run, this seasonality. The past 6 to 12 months, they could still ride that wave, that, you know, the AI wave. Caterpillar is kind of a different one. So Caterpillar is one that, you know, there's going to be a lot of new infrastructure being built, whether you're talking about the border, you're talking about with nuclear energy plants, they're wanting to restart, rebuild new things, a lot of infrastructure, whether it's roads, everything. You know, America's coming up on its 250th anniversary of independence, and there's going to be a lot of money, instead of being put into wars, hopefully is going to be put back into the economy, back into the nation, like we haven't seen since maybe even the 40s and 50s. Companies like this could see another rise. So with PMI recovery, the Purchasing Managers Index, it's this monthly economic indicator based on surveys and their responses by private sector companies in the manufacturing and services sector. So we have seen some stocks in the sector that have, you know, really been undervalued at one point, right? So they like to track this as well. And this index typically includes factors such as the new orders, production, employment, supplier deliveries, and inventories. So there had been that supply chain disruption for a lot of stocks in this sectors. Now they have about 13 in this that actually meet this theme as well. 28 stocks altogether meet this theme, but 13 actually in the Granny portfolio. I've kind of been looking at some stocks that are very undervalued, like Walgreens, you know, back at 1996 valuations right now. They can get their margins fixed, then I think stocks like that can do really well. More of a longer term thing for me. Now, if you're looking at their energy, that's kind of where we're segueing into this. The energy, the cybersecurity, you've seen a lot of stocks, and I don't see them holding, you know, we haven't seen any real Palantir, you know, cybersecurity. They're kind of one of the leaders. He has talked about it. And if we go back over here, he has some sleepers that these are not in the portfolio, but some of these have done phenomenal. APP was one of his sleepers. It's up 46% today. MicroStrategies, and then Palantir has been up a bunch, right? Just since earnings. This thing had rocketed over 20+% on earnings, and then another like 5-10% in the past few days. So this is the list. This is what it looks like right here today. Now, some of these are not going to, Granny, it's literally its first day, right? Some of these stocks, you know, they're going to have a little bit of a pullback. Some of them have seen some big moves already, and especially some of the ones related to finance. Jerome Powell did speak today, and they did lower rates, 25 basis points. So you are starting to see that. Look, the number one in the portfolio is Meta, right? number one. And as you guys know, I bought this stock and did a lot of deep value research. And that might actually be why Tom follows my research. I think he actually seen that I posted Meta at $88. This was right here at the bottom. Got really lucky, but I did a full thesis write-up and he enjoyed my PayPal thesis write-up. So maybe that was something, and this is their number one stock, right? Energy, cybersecurity, any companies that are going to be involved in that are going to be, it's going to be a longer term thing though. Energy is a very long-term thing. They need to invest a lot of money. And I don't see any like nuclear energy stuff. Maybe this could change. They could add some more in there. But there's also going to be a lot of pro-oil, especially refining in the US that we start to see in the US. And cybersecurity is big. Cybersecurity is one of those ones that a lot of companies have kind of started to really invest in the cybersecurity space. The government as well. Palantir, I think, had another like deal, like hundreds of millions of dollars with the US government, maybe like $1 billion for the Navy today. I think I saw that. So yeah, that's something that's really a kind of a longer term thing, but going to be involved in their ETF. Now, millennials, this is a big one and very, very interesting. Being a millennial myself, they say that I think millennials are going to eventually inherit $68 trillion of wealth over the coming few decades, right? So this is going to be a real big change in kind of, because millennial spending, how they spend, what millennials are going to be investing that money in. This is going to be a theme that they actually do track. Millennials, literally. So it's a big thing. They've got 11 stocks so far that kind of reach that criteria. Now, this is why I'm like wondering, like, could PayPal ever be in there? Because I feel like PayPal could actually, actually fill in some of these blanks, could actually fill in some of these themes that they have. And millennials is also one of those. Venmo, PayPal owns Venmo. So this is not me saying that they're going to add this, but it does meet a lot of the criteria. In a sense, cybersecurity too. PayPal has a lot of patents. They've got a lot of, in overseas, they own their China segment. So maybe it could cross paths with that as well. PMI recovery, seasonality, with the rates coming down, obviously, I think it could meet a lot of this. So I'm going to keep an eye on them and see if they actually do end up adding PayPal, especially it's still at 2017 valuations. Global labor suppliers. Now, there are a lot of people out there that have been shifting to different, jobs. A lot of people would rather do online work sometimes. I think a lot of the kids coming up, the new Gen Z or Gen Alpha especially, a lot of them want to be YouTubers. They want to do things online. So they don't like labor. And a lot of people don't want to be doing labor intensive jobs potentially because it is rough. It is hard. Some of these obviously intense labor, but then you also got just manual stuff that potentially could go to AI and robotics, right? So since 1973, they say that the global excess supply of labor is gone. So this is a big thing. In 1970, in the 70s, there was a lot of, we're seeing a lot of stuff start to cross paths with the 70s. Energy type crisis. We also had a nuclear energy renaissance. We're having that again with nuclear energy, small modular reactors, because this AI is going to need it. Not an excess of labor and a potential shortage in a lot of sectors. We're talking about nuclear engineering. We're talking about aircraft, maintenance and aircraft controllers and even pilots. We're starting to import people from around the world. Place where I live, we have a lot of people from Japan and Korea, a lot of young pilots coming in that are going to school that's being paid for by a lot of these big companies for free. So they could come in and they have to sign a contract kind of to work with them. You're seeing that you're importing labor because there is no more excess labor in a lot of these areas. So they see that as an opportunity in some stocks. So they've got 16. Now the last one is easing financial conditions. So when we're seeing rates cut, we've seen some stocks already today reacting to this, some in a positive way, some in a negative way, in a sense. If you go to the fintech stocks, you're seeing actually stocks like PayPal, they're pretty, flat line for today. Shop is up, but some of these stocks like Hood was up 20% yesterday. So a lot of these have been priced in a little bit, but you still don't have the administration in. Powell is dropping rates, but my whole thesis point was that for PayPal, it's going to be a long-term thesis, obviously. And as rates come down, this is actually going to help the company. It's going to help some fintech stocks, even like SoFi, I think are going to do a lot better. And this is going to be one that, especially with rates coming down, these could really see investors and big funds come back to them. Because PayPal has not had the amount of institutional investors it had during this run up. Now, they have a criteria with their fund, specifically how they can add. Right here, the fund will invest at least 80% of its assets in large cap stocks. So the companies, they must have a $10 billion valuation or greater. Securities are chosen for the fund through the top fundamental analysis and quantitative screening process through analysis of broad research areas. Themes are identified within the research areas. Once a theme is identified, top-down fundamental analysis are conducted to recognize individual companies that could benefit from the identified theme. Individual companies are then quantitatively screened for a stock to appear in the fund portfolio. It must appear in 2 or more of those themes. Okay, so 2 or more. They've got 35 right now. We just looked at them. And today, like literally is like the first day. The stocks in this, they're pretty well balanced. 3%, Goldman Sachs, Tesla, JPMorgan's 3%. I think where they're lacking, where they might add more is going to be the energy type sector. This is obviously where they're lacking. I think it's a major opportunity. And who knows, maybe Tom Lee will see maybe some of the nuclear energy stuff that I've talked about. Here, nuclear energy, some of the stocks like ORCL are up 23% today. Look at this. Look at how much this stock has ran since. I mean, this is Sam Altman, ChatGPT, OpenAI. He's on the board here, and they're big supporter of nuclear energy. Lightbridge up 17% today. Some of these are up 500-600% recently. Nano Nuclear, this is a stock that pre-round for $1. I have some friends that actually are on the board, and they offered me at $1. I didn't actually take it at the time. I was buying Meta at the time and really looking at deep value stocks. A lot of uranium and nuclear energy stocks have pulled back. So that was something I missed. They are going to be doing another deal with another company. ASPI up 10%, a stock we've been buying since it's flat today, since literally it was about $3 or $4. This thing hit 118 recently, which is Centrus Energy. This stock has pulled back a little bit. They did a $350 million offering. Big funds have been coming in. You can see the volume here. These are Tom Lee's stocks going to be, going down right here. We're going to start tracking them. The fund today closed about $20.18. So it was up about 1.4% after hours too. He's got a lot of great ideas, and I'm excited to actually see where this goes. The outlook on this is going to be very positive, especially for this administration. I don't think he would have done this, if he wouldn't have done this fund, if he didn't think that this new administration was going to potentially help us run to new all-time highs in the entire market. But I really appreciate you guys sticking around. If you guys want to support the channel, check the links below for the Patreon. This is where you're going to get access to my Discord. This is where I have my portfolio. We've been talking about this stuff all day. We're going to talk about, nuclear energy stocks, my new portfolio that I'm building that's going to be related to nuclear energy, deep value, new positions. Everything's going to be brand new. Kind of like this fund. It's going to be my own fund in a sense that everyone can track members in there and you guys can support the channel. We've been doing this for a while, and thank you so much. And until next time.